And live on Facebook. We will be starting in approximately 1 minute.
All right, let's go.
We are live. Well, hello, everyone. Happy Sunday morning to you, and welcome to the Hockey Podcast. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at podcast_hockey. Like us on Facebook. We are on Facebook Live, so you can also just click like or follow on that. Also live on YouTube. Subscribe. That would be great. And as well, Instagram, TikTok. No, we're not even on TikTok. So, but maybe we'll be on TikTok one day. But you can also subscribe on iTunes, Google, iHeartRadio, Spotify, etc., etc. Give me a moment. I clearly need more coffee. So it's Sunday morning at 9 o'clock Pacific. Tyler, I think you and I feel that.
Yeah, we are definitely the disadvantaged in this podcast with the Pacific time zone, and I gotta tell you, it's still not looking very bright outside.
Yeah, I was outside earlier, and
are we gonna be doing this early in the morning throughout the off season? We should say.
I don't know, Devin, Sean.
I'm good, whatever.
Hey,
I don't know.
Well, I chose it because of NFL football that starts.
I'm just sick of excuses. I need results. I need the team to be pulling on all heartstrings right now. Come on.
Well, we have a question. We'll have a question for you for a second. Sean, are you doing all right over there?
I'm all right. Yeah, it's been a nice fall week so in Calgary. So yeah, it's been windy, but we're good here.
So Devin, we need to have a conversation before we begin. What, like, sometimes we get things can be misinterpreted in messages, but we all read that you were selling strippers and could not make it last week because you were, quote, out selling strippers.
Yeah, I was selling peelers, strippers.
And whoa.
Getting worse.
Look, it's the ledge.
Okay, so
that's a steep drop.
Some clarification. I was working for my buddy's company, Spartan Kitchen. Check them out. Selling vegetable peelers and knife sharpeners. Yeah, it was a great time. Let me tell you, Brooks, lively town, lively.
Not only because it's the home of Nickelback.
No, that's Hannah.
That's true.
Yes.
But weren't they like, didn't they do stuff in Brooks too?
I have no idea. Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Brooks's claim to fame is where Cale McCarr played his junior hockey.
That's
for the Brooks Bandits.
Yes, that is very true, of course. Yes. I'm just retweeting. Yes, let's start there. Cale Makar, the awards were announced Monday. Cale Makar won the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year. I might start with Devin here because I feel like the most angry will be on the bottom left. By the way, everyone, if you have questions, comments, concerns, comment, we'll post them. We'll get to them there as well. But Devin, if you had a vote for the Calder Trophy, Cale Makar or Quinn Hughes, who would you have voted for?
I would have voted for Quinn Hughes, in all honesty, but it doesn't mean that Cale Makar was not worthy of winning it this year. Yes, there was a bit of going back to last year's playoffs. He played very well and he had a good coming out party. And I guess that's the argument there, is that that wasn't actually in the same realm of voting for Rookie of the Year. So maybe some voters were skewed because of that, but I think overall they made a good decision. He could have gone either way with Makar or Hughes.
My feelings are the same as Devin's. I would have had Hughes on top of my ballot if I had a ballot, but both very deserving. And I do feel strongly that there was some, influence for voters when you're looking at it in equal manner. Well, what kind of tips the scale towards Makar? Well, the fact he burst onto the scene in the playoffs last year may have helped influence the vote a little bit. Of course, Quinn Hughes playing for a Western Canadian team doesn't get as much of the national TV exposure in the U.S. as perhaps Colorado, although they don't get that much either. So I don't know, very close, both very deserving. Would have been great to see Hughes and have two Canucks go back to back in the Calder Trophy wins, but not in the cards this time.
What do you, before we get to Sean, do you think that the record of the Avalanche played a factor in this?
I don't know. I think it's more just you get down to two good players, and I don't want to say that it's a popularity contest, but whose sort of wow factor kind of outweighs the other. And I think obviously for a lot of people that was Makar.
All right, so yeah, Makar was totally deserving of winning the Calder Trophy. Both him and Quinn Hughes had historic seasons. We have not seen, despite seeing Rasmus Dahlin in the previous season, we have not seen two defensemen come in and make such an impact on their teams and play at such a high level before. If it wasn't for injuries, Cale Makar would have had the distinction of being the first rookie defenseman to lead rookies in scoring since Brian Leetch, and the third all time, including Bobby Orr. But he had a couple injuries, and that distinction has gone to Quinn Hughes. So both of them are very much deserving. My issue is that the fact that the way for people who don't know, each person in the Pro Hockey Writers Association has to rank their top 5 rookies, and they get points weighted on based off of where they get ranked in each person. And there was votes for Adam Fox and Dominic Kubalik and Mackenzie Blackwood and Elvis Merzlikins all in the top 2, when none of them had historic seasons. Like if it was a closer race between the rest of them, I could understand. But we're talking about 2 historic, like generational defensemen coming in and playing absolutely amazing, and you're not putting them both in the top 2. It shows a complete lack of either knowledge of everyone involved, or complete bias based off of who you voted for. Like, I think one of them was that put Adam Fox in the top 2. I think one of them even gave Adam Fox the number 1 vote. Was they were both New York based writers. So it's complete bias is what that is. So I just don't understand why we can't, like, what's going on there other than just bias and absolute lunacy in terms of, in my opinion. Like these two players deserve to be absolutely unanimous 1-2 in the voting, no matter what order you put them in. But it's the Pro Hockey Writers Association to me is supposed to be the most knowledgeable people about hockey, and they're not when they make those votes. That's just how I felt.
The word you didn't use there, Sean, was agenda. I mean, I think that it's the reason why the transparency and the revealing of who voted for who is in place is because agendas seem to be an issue with the voting. So I guess there is a bit of a deterrent now with the fact that there's the transparent voting. But yeah, you do get these odd results and wonder what the motivations are when, it's pretty clear who the top two should have been, and they ended up being the top two in the voting once it was all tallied. But yeah, some head scratchers there for sure, and I don't think it's because they're uninformed. I think there's other motivations.
Well, even like to get to the Hart Trophy, like not to move away from this, but the Hart Trophy conversation to me, unless I was a moron, which is possible, to me, this was a no-brainer. It was Leon Draisaitl. I don't think it was very close. I think that should have been, you could have had a legitimate argument if you were an Oilers fan, then that should have been anonymous. Now, I'm not saying that Draisaitl and McDavid should have been the top two. I'm not saying that at all. But how did Artemi Panarin even get into this conversation? The Rangers were like, the Rangers got the gift of being the part of the 24, the playoff qualifiers, but they were not really close to a playoff spot. Like, what value did Artemi Panarin get in? And yet he got into the top three. So I do like the point about the New York bias or the New York agenda. I think it feels like some writers have to put in some New York thing or as Dom Lucian pointed out on his Twitter, because Dom Lucian got called out for his vote. And he said that points are overrated when you're considering MVP tallies. It's outdated. Like, you should not be looking at points.
What should you be looking at?
Well, yeah, I mean, what the objective of the game is goals. So, like, do we change this now? Like, this goal thing.
You look at the points when it suits your agenda, Kevin. That's how this all goes. Come on now.
The thing with Dom Lucian and others is that they feel like there's all these other more advanced stats that can show you who's valuable and who's not. And Panarin was valuable to the Rangers. Without Panarin, the Rangers are another lottery team. It's that simple.
They got the first pick, so
yeah. Well, there was all out there. How many lottery teams were there this year? Come on. But they like a legit lottery team.
Well, right? There were 7 real ones and 8 placeholders. You know this.
Yeah. So it's like you have to like when you get into valuable and most valuable, it's so subjective. And the biggest issue I have with that, what you were bringing up there, Kev, with points being overvalued, is that it's these people and these analytics guys and people are basically yelling at us because we aren't paying attention to these overcomplicated, super like abstract stats that aren't publicly available. You have to pay for them. I got into an argument about Blake Coleman, about whether or not he's a first line player, and I said, and then because one person was like, why are you using points to evaluate a player? And then I started just thinking about it, going, okay, where do I get this? Because the stat that they wanted me to look at was regulated, adjusted, plus minus, which is like it includes so many different advanced stats to create something. But the only place you can get it is behind a paywall. You have to pay into their Patreon to get it. which I'm all for. But if you're going to tell someone that they're stupid because they're not using that when they have to pay for it, I think is crap. There are so many different ways to evaluate a hockey player and their value to a team. Artemi Panarin, I think, deserves to be in the MVP vote, most valuable player to his team. Draisaitl, to me, is between Draisaitl and McKinnon, and I think you could have flipped a coin, and you could have gone either way. That's my thoughts, but it's just on that. But Panarin wasn't that far behind, in my opinion. But you can do so many different ways to do it. Like we're talking about an award that had 3 separate Canucks players get votes.
Hughes, Markstrom, and Horvat.
I think it was Miller.
Pettersson,
Miller, right.
Pettersson, Miller, and Markstrom got votes for the MVP. So again, it's agenda and whatever, but it's also when you like with the Calder, it's who had the best season, who had the best season, had the most impact as a rookie. When you get into most valuable player, and when you read the actual terminology of the Hart Trophy, it's most valuable player to their team. There is so much subjectivity, and I think I like that because it creates debate. It creates us talking about it about the Oilers and the Rangers when we're in the middle of a Stanley Cup final that they haven't even been, either of them have been close to in years.
Listen, in terms for Panarin's vote, the reason why he got the vote was because he had 95 points and he was second in plus minus with plus 36 on a crap team. Mm-hmm. That says a lot, does it not?
Plus minus is a flawed stat, but there's so many flawed stats out there.
Okay, hold off on this flawed stat bullshit. Sorry.
But when you compare it to everything else and everyone else on his team, yes, you have to take that into account. And I do agree with you that what he did, and you take that into account, adds to him being a candidate.
Well, okay, flawed stat or not, it's still a stat. It's still part of whether or not you are a plus minus player. That means a lot. Obviously, it has to do with a whole bunch of situational, where you're put in situations, how you're executed from your coach, and who's on the ice as well. But with being a should have been a lottery team and shouldn't have been in the playoffs or in the qualifier, a plus 36 on a shit team, that says a lot, man. I don't care what you think. That says a lot.
I guess to me, my argument, but you make some good points, but to me, and maybe I have a partial bias or whatever, but I looked at what Draisaitl did and the talent on that Oilers team, and I just felt when McDavid went down, he found a way to keep this team afloat. And that was where my vote was. Like, that's why to me it was Draisaitl. I would put this Draisaitl over McKinnon because just in terms of talent, I thought that Draisaitl did more with less and the results showed that. Where Colorado, I think there was a lot of talent on that team, and I'm not dismissing what McKinnon did. And the Rangers weren't close to a playoff team, so Panarin was not on my radar. I mean, I would probably put it, if I had my top 3 would have been Draisaitl, McKinnon, and Connor Hellebuyck.
Yeah, I don't think Hellebuyck got enough votes and everything for what he did for Winnipeg. The whole playoffs thing with how valuable you are to your team is always a debate when you talk about this award. Always a debate. Was it 2 years ago when Oilers fans were just screaming, kicking and screaming that McDavid should win it outright? It shouldn't be even close when they weren't even a playoff team. But then you're like, okay, and that, I think that is something that needs to be put into everything. I think it's part of the equation, and I think how you weight it all comes down to personal preference. And again, there's so much subjectivity with the Hart Trophy that it just adds such amazing debate and discussion and drama to what can be what could be a very boring vote if it wasn't so subjective.
One of my issues with the Hart Trophy in particular is that it seems to be an opportunity for the media to promote certain players or narratives, as opposed to just purely looking at it like who's the best player this year. You know, there's all this talk all the time about McDavid's the best player in the world, and yet he received one first place vote in the Hart Trophy voting this year, and it wasn't one of the Edmonton media voters. So, you know, now if you're all the Edmonton people and you get together and say, well, you know, Draisaitl's our vote this year. Yeah, I'm not saying this did happen, but it, you know, it kind of looks like it could have been that way. Groupthink and all, you know, they make sure that Draisaitl gets lots of votes. You know, now going through the next season, you've got this whole thing to promote, that you've got these 2 Hart Trophy winners on this great team, and Edmonton's this and Edmonton's that. I mean, it's certainly a bit self-serving for the media when they do it in a certain fashion, as opposed to, you know, who really was the best player that year. You know, I think there's some more debate between whether it really was Draisaitl or perhaps somebody else.
But you have the Hart, which is the MVP, which you can define as the subjective, but you also have the Ted Lindsay, right? And
but the Lindsay is voted on by the players, right, as the most outstanding player.
Mm-hmm.
That's a completely different trophy, and if I'm a player, that's the trophy I want to win.
Yeah,
you're deemed the best player of that season by your peers, as opposed to writers who don't necessarily haven't played against you, don't necessarily know what you bring on the ice when at that level, and haven't watched probably 3/4 of your games.
Yeah.
That's when I went on my rant and said uninformed. Sorry for interrupting you, Kev. But when I said that, it's because they can't watch every game. So, and you've got basically these writers, and as well as television and radio analysts that don't get to watch every game, a lot of games of other teams. So they only get to see a little snippet of what these players can bring. So if say Quinn Hughes goes into some place and plays poorly for a couple of games, but just absolutely stellar for the majority of the season, that's going to skew their thought process. I don't know what the best way to have the votes are, but I just wish there was a better way for these people to understand and not feel like they have to throw their agendas in there and use the biases that they have to really skew these votes that could end up really hurting a player in the wallet too. Because if they get nominated, or if they win a major award, they, especially on their ELCs, they get bonuses.
Well, there's the other agenda on this too, and we brought it up with Dom Lucian, and I'll bring it up. I do believe that there are voters that are trying to be cooler than school and are trying to make this about them and who they're voting for, because now we know who votes for who. It's like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm cool because I voted for Adam Fox, and I'm smarter than all of you folks that voted for Makar and Hughes because I saw something different. And they're trying to make this as an attention thing. And I think that that's really, it's insincere, it's selfish, and it's extremely dangerous. And I think those types of things, I think their credentials should be removed. If they're pulling stunts like that, I think that would be an argument to remove a credential.
I wouldn't say Dom Lucian did that, though.
I'm not saying Dom Lucian did, but I do think that there are people that are trying that.
Oh, there definitely have been people who've done that. People who don't even have credentials are trying to do that as well. Like I said, I'll talk. The evolving hockey, evolving wild on Twitter. They're very much they look so far deep into these analytics, they lose themselves in it. and they come up with these like this insane theories on who's more valuable than who and who should be the Selke Award winners and everything, and it's insane. Like these analytic stats are fantastic when you use them right. The issue is like the 90% of the people on that talk about them in public don't. They either get too caught up in using in one stat, or they get too caught up in digging deeper and deeper and deeper until they can't see the ice surface and everything. So it's interesting. I said I read what Dom had to say, and I don't mind his arguments at all. I don't think it's a bad argument at all, but it to me, I just think that sometimes you have to take a step back and not rely on those stats nearly as much as some people want people to do.
As far as moving credentials, I mean, you're going to have different people with different views, no matter what, right? And if you want to call it, them trying to pump their own tires and think that they're better than everybody else, I mean, I just think the awards in general get overblown just a bit much with right and wrong, because it's all up to interpretation of how you see each team and how you see each player. So you are going to have biased people like Sean talking about the Canucks, and you're going to have biased people like Kevin talking about the Seattle Kraken. I don't know. You're just going to have that no matter what. So
look who's here.
Gord decided to show up.
We heard you chirping Sean, and he said, I better get on this action.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, going. No matter what, you're going to have people disagree with everything, but as long as you have a good balance between what you see on the ice and what analytics you want to look at, I think you have a valid point in making the decision that you did. But if you have an agenda and you want to be doing strutting your shit, then yeah, it could cause it, and obviously we're talking about it right now.
Tyler, did you have anything to add on that?
No.
In terms of just quickly, there really wasn't, I don't think, any big, maybe the biggest surprise out of everything else was Bruce Cassidy won the Jack Adams over Tort, I think, which was the consensus favorite. You know what? I'm actually not super offended by that. I'm not the biggest lover of Boston or anything, but they were the President's Trophy team, and I think something should be said for that. I don't know if Bruce Cassidy's gotten the respect he's deserved necessarily anyway, but I don't know. Was there any other shocks or surprises before we move on?
No, I don't think so. I have been fairly positive guy towards Bruce Cassidy. I just like his demeanor, like his the way he conducts himself in the media, a fairly straightforward, no nonsense coach, and Boston keeps rolling along with a team that's getting older, and they're still doing great.
Yeah,
I liked that they rewarded a coach of a good team this year, because usually the Jack Adams is awarded to the coach that takes a team that was bad the season before and makes them somewhat good. So I do like that they rewarded a coach of a team that was good last year and then continued to be good this year. I think we've lost that aspect of in terms of the Jack Adams voting in seasons past.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll move on to that. That was an interesting conversation that blended a bunch of different things there. But let's get to, who do we want to start with? Do we want to start with the Flames, or do we want to start with the Canucks? Maybe I'll let Devin decide.
We can start with the Canucks. Let's go with the villains here.
All right. Oh, a couple of comments. Beard's looks fantastic this morning, Nobes, and nice pink mug, Devin. So, shout out to our comments so far. So, so far, no movement yet on the big three: Markstrom, Tanev, Toffoli. Some things that happened this week that may affect things is the Pittsburgh Penguins acquired Mike Matheson, from the Florida Panthers, a great human being, apparently. You may remember Matheson for running Pettersson into the boards, and Eric Francis having a chirpy comment about that. And the Detroit Red Wings getting Mark Stahl, and what's Tyler's favorite word, the sweetener, and we do have a sound effect now. Whoops, wait.
Sweet.
Yeah, see, so yeah, it was a sweetener deal from the New York Rangers. Does that affect anything? Let's start with Tanev quickly. Do you see anything affected those acquisitions, or where are we at? Well, not only with Tanev, maybe with all three of our favorite three free agents: Tanev, Markstrom, Toffoli.
Well, I think they're expecting Toffoli to sign pretty quickly here. I think he likes it in Vancouver. He likes the how he fits in, and the Canucks understand that. I think they understand that having a really strong top six is something that can really give them an edge. So I think they definitely want to bring him in, which means they aren't trading Brock Besser. So we'll just put that out there and make sure people understand that. With Tanev, the Matheson acquisition with Pittsburgh is interesting, because there was talk that Jim Rutherford and the Penguins were interested in bringing in Chris Tanev, and wouldn't be afraid to give him a long-term deal to match up with his brother Chris, his contract, who's a forward for the Penguins right now as well. So I don't know that I wouldn't be surprised if that takes the Penguins out of the running for Tanev, because I don't know if they've got the cap space or the budget space, because there's talks that the Penguins aren't going to spend to the cap this year to bring in Chris Tanev. So it'll be interesting to see if that affects that. And then Markstrom, there's just more rumblings on who would be who would be interested in him if he actually makes it to UFA. So it's gonna be very interesting. I think this week's gonna be the more interesting week, because we're gonna start seeing players being bought out. We already saw one with Bobby Ryan, and I think we're going to see more trades, especially once the Stanley Cup final is over and leading up to the NHL draft, which will be next week.
Yeah, I'm not so sure other deals have had much effect on whether the Canucks can re-sign their free agents. If you're Tanev, we've talked about this last weekend. There's got to be a lot of interest out there for him to connect with his brother Brandon in Pittsburgh would be pretty attractive for him as well. But as Sean points out, can the Penguins make the numbers work there? Hard to say. Yeah, as far as the next week goes, it's definitely going to ramp up. The rumor mill is certainly going to be running a lot faster than what we've seen so far.
Devin, you worried over there?
Not overly. I think the trades are going to be amped up here pretty soon. You've already seen. I've expected more or expected less to happen before the end of the Stanley Cup Finals, and you think that would be a kind of a pivoting point for trades to kind of pick up, but I don't think that anything that's happened is going to affect Tanev going forward.
The one big thing is it does appear at this point, according to Rick Dhaliwal, that Markstrom and the Canucks camp are not close, and the Team Detroit came up this week, which I initially was thinking that seems that doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense, and I thought about it more, and it still doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense for him. Where are you at with Markstrom at this point, that it's not close at this point? Or
Well, they're not at the 11th hour yet, so I don't know how much do you get concerned about them not being close. I mean, they could have a Zoom call today and suddenly be a lot closer. I don't know. I mean, when we get to within the last 3 or 4 days of the start of free agency and they're not close, I would be a little more concerned.
Let's go back to last summer, and we had the lead up to free agency and the worry of losing Alex Edler. They got that deal done at the last minute. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens here, especially because I think the Canucks definitely have a hard limit on how long they're willing to go on term, how high they're willing to go on cap, and as well as issues in terms of no movement clauses and no trade clauses. So I really do think that it will be, if a deal gets done, it will be a last minute a deal with Markstrom for sure. And I think ideally I think the Canucks hope they can make a decision either way earlier on, because then they can move on and try and figure things out, maybe trade wise at the draft, or maybe changing gears on how they approach, say, Chris Tanev contract negotiation. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if both Markstrom and Tanev contract negotiations go right down to the wire, and one or both end up signed if they do. So I'm not worried yet, but that could change at any day now. So it's going to be interesting to see what exactly happens and what information comes out too.
I would be worried if I was a Canucks fan. I don't think that Markstrom this late in the game will sign back with the Canucks. I think that Sean compared it to being Edler, but Edler's not a top 5 defenseman in this league, and Markstrom is arguably a top 5 goalie in this league. So I think that Markstrom knows his worth as much as he wants to stay. Security of a contract term and cap wise, I think that he's going to walk. But if it is going to happen, it will happen last minute. But I don't see it in the tea leaves.
Fair.
Yeah. I do think that I think Markstrom does want to at least take a couple phone calls from some phone calls from a few teams when they have that 2-day, instead of having a week of legalized tampering, they got 2 days worth of it this year. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if Markstrom wants to take a few calls there within those 2 days and see exactly what else is out there. I don't blame him. He's had a year and a half of absolute phenomenal hockey, and been one of the best goalies in the league in that time. So, but I do think that all things equal, he does want to stay. I think he feels comfortable with Ian Clark as his goalie coach. He likes the city of Vancouver, and if they can come to agreement on a longer term contract with a cap hit that makes sense, I don't think he'd be willing to walk away from what he has to go into the unknown.
That will remain to be. I mean, it's one of those. I think everyone has Pietrangelo, and we'll talk about him in a moment here. But everyone has Pietrangelo as kind of the top guy. I would legitimately say Markstrom would be. I think Markstrom would probably be number 2. Markstrom or Holtby. I think 2, 3. I think that over Taylor Hall. I don't know if there's going to be as much interest in Taylor Hall as much, but I think I would imagine that Markstrom is going to want to at least listen to what's out there, and then we'll take it from there. But the Canucks have a bit of an advantage because they have Demko and they have a limit, and they also have Ian Clark. So that's something that other teams don't have. And if you think that you have the best goaltender coach in the game, that's an advantage that you can certainly work with. The other thing I wanted to bring up, though, and this was Jeff Petrie signed an extension this week with the Montreal Canadiens. And I just quickly looked here. it's Tanner Pearson, Sutter, and Berchi are the unrestricted free agencies. I don't think we're looking at anyone getting a contract extension, but if you're the Canucks, is other than Pettersson or Hughes, is there anyone else that you feel at this point you want to renegotiate with within this flat cap? Petrie's argument is he wanted some security. So is there anyone now that you're kind of like, maybe we need to just tighten up that contract a little bit, other than Pettersson and Hughes, which is the two most important contracts that you're going to have to sign this decade?
No. The big thing with the Canadians is they don't really have much in the way of UFAs and RFAs to deal with this offseason. So they have the security of knowing what their cap situation looks like this year, and they can start looking forward, and they can start locking up key core players long term for their team. Canucks don't have that luxury this year. They've got, like I said, we just talked about the big three, and then we haven't even talked about the RFAs on the Canucks side too. They've got some big RFAs that they need to make decisions on. So they need to focus in on this off season as opposed to looking forward at this point.
Yeah, and caution in not overreacting to one playoff appearance and then thinking everybody's a sure thing here. Like that would be easy to do that as management, get all excited about what you have there, and then start throwing a bunch of money around and a bunch of term. Careful with that, okay? Especially since yes, it was playoff hockey, but it was not the usual playoff hockey with all the travel and hostile fan demands upon the players.
Yeah, but it was a thought just to bring up because of the situation where we're in a flat cap and just where we are in terms of thinking. I mean, but yeah, you're right. It's about this off season. We didn't bring up the RFAs, but I'm not expecting a lot updated on that. I think right now for me, the unrestricted free agent, the UFAs are kind of the priority in terms of what's going to happen. The RFAs, I think that can happen over time, and depending also on when we'll get into a little bit later, when the season starts too. I think we'll have how long you have to negotiate that.
Just a word on RFAs. I mean, I think with a flat cap, we're probably going to see across the league quite a number of RFAs that hold out for a while. The pool is a little, it's not as deep as it normally gets in an off season. So we'll see. Not saying Canucks RFAs will do that, but we have seen evidence of that in years past here.
I also think we're going to see a lot of RFAs not get qualified.
Yeah.
As well. A la Ben Hutton last year with the Canucks. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few of those because of the flat cap and because of the arbitration cases that they could potentially have. So if you're an RFA with arb rights and you want to stay in with that team, I think you gotta take what they give you, as long as it's not a complete low ball situation, because they may not qualify you at all.
Pulling what Mangiapane pulled with the Flames, I don't think would be very. It wouldn't be a smart move for any RFA to do that this year.
Yeah, that's a good example you bring up there.
Anything else with the Canucks that we need to discuss? It was a quiet week for Canuck land,
Yeah, they're just setting up all the dominoes for everything to fall, I think, for in the next couple of weeks. The only other ones that I think is it's now buyout season, and we've got I would say two potential buyouts on the Canucks. We went over it last week how Louis Eriksson, at least at this point, doesn't make sense as a buyout for this year. But Brandon Sutter potentially that would save the Canucks over $2 million in cap for this season, as well as a Jay Beagle. I think is an option there, depending on how you want to build the bottom six. So or even a Sven Berchi, I think it saves them a little bit of money as well. But it's going to be interesting to see if the Canucks actually make any moves on that aspect.
I think Berchi's the most likely of that bunch. I mean, we got to be honest here. Do you think the Canucks are actually ready to part ways with Beagle or Sutter? They, as far as I could tell, they still very much like those guys part of this group.
Yeah, but they're going to have to make some big tough decisions this offseason with so, to create cap space so that they can put together a proper team, a deep team that can be a playoff contender and hopefully more. So I do think they're going to have to make a decision on a Sutter, more specifically. He's got 1 year left at over $4 million at $4 million cap, but he's making less than that. 4.375 is his cap, but he's making 4.5 total, but he's already been paid out his $1 million signing bonus. So they might be able to find a spot for him. But if not, then I think they need to take a look at a buyout for him there, because they need any cap space they can create for this season. It is going to be huge to try and set themselves up going forwards.
I don't see them parting ways with Sutter or
Beagle,
or even Tanner Pearson. To me, they did a decent enough job to get you guys in the playoffs and go far enough. Berchi's the only one I could see that Jim Benning would be willing and able to part ways with.
That'd be a pretty easy one, I think.
Yeah. I could see Sutter because you do have Cole Lind coming. So, and you do have Zach McEwen. So you have options of where you could replace him. Beagle is, because Beagle kills penalties and is good at killing penalties. To me, I don't necessarily see that one, but and I also, part of me, there's a small percentage of me wonders if Sven Berchi is going to retire.
Quite possible. He's not that old yet, but I mean, he took the opt out this time, so.
The Sven Berchi, because you if you bury him again in AHL or loan him out and have to bear to Europe or whatever, like something like that, they save 1.075 in cap, and if you buy him out, you save 1.6 in cap, but you also end up having an extra $800,000 on the cap next the following season. So it's not as easy a decision to buy out Berchi as I think many think. With Sutter, you're actually getting a significant amount of money off the cap, and as much as they like Sutter, I think they know that they need to make some tough decisions to not have to on whether it's Sutter or one of the younger players. They're going to have to make some tough decisions. So I wouldn't put it past them to find a trade partner or a buyout option with Brandon Sutter.
Well, what's the cap repercussions for next year for Sutter if they buy him out this year? That's the other thing, is that looking forward, why force yourself into a difficult situation when all those players have 1 year left?
Well, you still need to improve the defense, though.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
That's the big issue.
To answer your question, Devin, I think it really comes down to, do the Canucks feel like they can contend next year? For me, I'm like, really? Like, I don't think so, but I'm sure internally they're thinking it. If you're the owner and you liked what you saw in the bubble hockey, and you've got Hughes and Petey heading into the final year of their entry level deals, I would think there's a very strong possibility that whatever moves they make is going to be aimed at going for it in 2021.
But the only issue with that is this is upcoming season's the last season that they have Pettersson and Hughes on ELC contracts. After that, there's a good chance that both those players combined are making $20 million.
Yeah, and there's going to be significant changes to the rest of the team as a result of that.
So it comes down. There's so many variables. How close do they feel that Niles Hoglander and Vasily Podkolzin are to being top 9 NHL players, let alone top 6? Because I think both of them have top 6 ceilings. But even if they can come in and be a third line, players that can give them third line minutes, how close are those two? How close are they? How close are they able to fix this blue line? Can they do it internally with Rathbone and Rafferty and Ulevi, or do they need to go out and grab someone to? Because right now they only, after this season, they only have one defenseman signed, one NHL defenseman signed past this season. That's Tyler Myers. So they've got a lot of work to do, and that's why going right back almost full circle to the Petrie and looking at next season, they can't. They cannot. They have too much work this offseason to do to try and keep Markstrom and Toffoli and Tanev, and they've got Gaudette to sign. They've got Stetcher and Virtanen to make decisions on. They've got veterans that are being overpaid to make decisions on. Like, there's so much work to do, and we don't know when the next season's going to start. But if training camp starts on time, which is supposed to be beginning of December, we're looking at a month and a half of absolute just sprint to the finish work for Jim Benning and the Canucks front office.
I'd just be cautious of making a knee-jerk reaction over one playoff run that was, bubble hockey, right? It was abnormal. And next year you're going to have a condensed season. So I don't know.
Well, I don't know if we're going to have a condensed season. I don't think we are, actually. I think they are hell bent on doing 82 games.
But it's going to be a very, tightly
condensed schedule.
Yeah.
There you go. That
arranged schedule.
That's what I
meant. And I think they understand that, but like what is it? Is it knee jerk to try and clear up cap space so that they can sign players that can help develop these younger players? Is it knee jerk to bring back Markstrom, who's a top 5 goalie? Is it knee jerk to bring back Tanev, to move out some cap so you can bring back Tanev, who's the dad of the locker room, and bringing in Toffoli, they gave up a couple of big assets for, and has been when he's been on the ice has been one of absolute fantastic player and fantastic fit for them. I was saying
knee jerk in the sense that you think that you're going to win next year, and you're going to make moves to think that you can win next year. Not like you got to think about the long term here and the long term stability of the Canucks. And yes, you're going to have potentially $20 million wrapped up with Hughes and Pettersson after this the 20 or 21 season. But I don't know. You got to think the longevity, and you have an owner that is a knee jerk and let's win now kind of mentality. And Benning's just going to go along for the ride because you got to make your owners happy, right? So that just be a cautionary tale right there of potential breakdown of your entire franchise, really.
Yeah.
The Aquilinis have been more patient than they were, say, 10 years ago, but still, I think we've seen enough over time to know that when they get a little taste of success, boy, they're really itching at going for it as opposed to taking the long route. Well,
the cautionary tale is the Oilers in 2016, I want to say. They got to the second round. Everyone got excited. They made they got rid of Jordan Eberle, which was a huge mistake. Not necessarily trading Jordan Eberle wasn't necessarily the mistake. That was part of it, but what they got for him was not nearly enough, obviously. So there is that cautionary tale. But the other thing with the Western Conference is, I look at this and I'm not no disrespect to Dallas in any way, shape, or form, but I honestly think that this Western Conference, maybe other than maybe Vegas, I think this is anybody's ball game. Like, in a lot of ways, I think there's very few teams that I would say that don't have a lot of chance. Like, if you get on a run in the Western Conference next year, you will have a chance to get to the finals. I don't think that there's one purely dominant team in the West.
I agree with what Devin was saying, though. It's about finding that right balance. It's putting a team together next season that puts them in a situation to compete for a playoff spot and see what happens. But you can't lose sight of what's going on after that season with Quinn Hughes and Pedersen needing new contracts, and you're still going to be on a flat cap. You cannot handcuff yourself in terms of that. But you still need to find a way to try and at least make sure that they can get into the playoffs to a point and build off of this season going into the 2020-2021 season. So it's a very, very tough off season for Jim Benning and the Canucks front office. It's going to be the one that shapes this team for the next 5 to 10 years, I think. Yeah. So we could talk 3, 4, 5 hours on what he should do, and everything like that. So and debate on whether or not adding draft picks to relieve themselves of big money contracts is the right move to do, or not, because that's a debate that is happening all over Canucks fandom right now, because the mystery box prize that can be a really good draft pick is very enticing for a lot of fans. You don't we got for, I think Adam Gaudette was a 5th round pick. They were able to turn Tyler Madden, a 3rd round pick, into a legitimate asset to help them get Tyler Toffoli.
Think of it like currency. That it's it's huge sometimes in making a deal happen.
And I think just before we end here, I think just as a for all Canucks fans out there and all hockey fans out there, you need to start understanding that, especially during a flat cap situation, cap space is an asset. Money that you don't have to spend on said player is an asset. So if you're giving up a 2nd round pick to open up cap space so that you can potentially sign key players or go after an unrestricted free agent to add to your team, that's an asset. Whether or not the problem with it is it's not a concrete asset, because if you don't end up using it, then you've wasted the asset. So it's a double-edged sword, but you have to look at that, and you can't just throw your hands up in the air and throw a tantrum if they say trade Brandon Sutter and a 2nd round pick to Florida for an AHLer or future considerations, which is what the Rangers did with Mark Stahl. Yeah. So just my thoughts on that, because I think that part gets lost in when these trades get made.
And Vancouver does not have their first 2 picks this year, so in this draft. So that is going to handcuff the situation a little bit more for Vancouver.
That being said, I think Brandon Sutter would return, say a 4th or 5th round pick.
Yeah, very unlikely they're going to be able to get any kind of a 1st round pick at this stage. A 2nd is also a fairly remote possibility. But if they can add some more in the 3, 4, 5 range, I'll take it.
The only way they can get a 2nd round pick is someone overpays for Jake Virtanen.
Yeah.
We'll see about that. So let's talk about the Flames and buyout options there. The big buyout option is Milan Lucic. Devin, we haven't really talked about this, but what do you do with Lucic? Do you bring him back, or do you look at a buyout, or?
You bring him back. I think going forward next year, the next offseason is if you want to buy him out, that's the time to buy him out. Especially with bringing Jeff Ward back. Jeff Ward brought the best out of Lucic this year. He was a big contributor in the playoffs, and he's exactly what we've been searching for a long time, having that grit, having that deterrent, if you will, that Brad Treliving has been talking about for years. And To me, it wouldn't make any sense to buy him out this offseason. It'd be next offseason for sure.
Kev, I just pulled up Lucic's buyout on Cap Friendly. The Flames would only save $500,000 on his for this season, because remember they would be saving over $1 million, but remember Edmonton's retaining a little bit of that salary. So Devin's right. The time to buy him out would be next after this upcoming season.
I don't think I've heard that from you, Sean. Devin's right. God, what's wrong with you?
Well,
in a generous mood today.
When you actually make a good point, I'll give it to you. They're few and far between.
Oh, that's all about perspective, you know. It's nice to look at the Canucks with rosy-eyed glasses on, right?
Yeah, I got to buy some Canuck glasses to sometimes put on.
Give them to Sean. God.
Hey, we are not all that way on this podcast. Okay.
I know. I'm not singling you out, Tyler. It's just my brother.
Just Sean. Just point just down over there.
Yeah, right there.
Or in my case, he's over.
I'm all over the place.
Yeah. So I mean, that was the only one that I think in terms of buyout I was looking at. The Flames have a lot of work to do specifically on the defense, because they have Hamonic, Forbort, Stone, Gustafsson, Brody, UFA. I maybe will suspect that they bring Forbort back for sure. There appears to be no conversation about Gustafsson, which is interesting to me. I don't think Brody's coming back, and I'm not suspecting Hamonic will be back either. I think they're losing. I think they're bringing one back, which I guess in that sense is interesting. But the other sense of this is the name Alex Pietrangelo has been linked to the Calgary Flames. I think we've discussed this a little bit. We had the Dumba conversation as well as a possible trade chip for a Sean Monahan or Johnny Gaudreau. Where are you with the idea of bringing in Pietrangelo?
Well, just going back on the Gustafsson, I thought they've been talking with Gustafsson and potentially bringing him back. So I wouldn't rule Gustafsson out right away, or as of yet. I think that bringing him back would be ideal.
So maybe if you had some more information that I didn't, then that's.
I'm an insider, Kev. Of course, I got information.
Great. Right, Mr. Friedman there.
Yeah, totally. Brad Treliving calls me on a daily, gives me updates. But as far as Pietrangelo goes, it's a very cautionary tale again with defensemen over 30, giving them the big ticket item that they've been looking for their entire career. Bringing them in, it would have to be at the right cap hit in the right term. Most likely the right term for me. Term is everything. Signing him for 7 years, I don't think is very wise. I would love to see him at a 4. If Brad Treliving is going to bring him in at a 4-year term, but that's not going to happen. Other teams are going to offer him a lot more, I think. So I'd love to have him, obviously, but I think his asking price is too high, and that's why things have gone sour in St. Louis with talks there with him. So there will be a team that's going to be paying for him, and Treliving's past. Treliving's in on everything. He's in on every single conversation with any big player. Taylor Hall trade potentially earlier this year, and just as an example. So I think that's what I love about Treliving. He's always in it. But it's all about term.
Mm-hmm. Just as a general comment, I mean, I'm not a Flames fan, but if I were a Flames fan, I would, outside of Matthew Tkachuk, I don't think anybody else should be untouchable there. There's got to be a fairly significant change to get that team to take a step forward. Be awesome if they could add Alex Pietrangelo to the back end, but who has to go the other way? Ship out for cap space purposes to make that work. Difficult, but I don't think Treliving's afraid to pull the trigger on those types of moves.
Pietrangelo would be a fantastic add. The Flames currently have 3 NHL defensemen signed. and then they've got a couple young guys that can probably step up on cheaper deals as well. So I don't think that it's too much of a cap issue. Trading someone that has a little bit of cap out to help relieve it and give them a little bit of a buffer between the cap ceiling would be good though. But adding Pietrangelo, I think, is well within their abilities this offseason, much more realistic than Pietrangelo going to the Leafs.
Somebody had to get that in there. Hey, I mean, I thought that was a foregone conclusion. He's going to Toronto.
I know, because I thought I heard a rumor that Sportsnet has already gotten into Alex Pietrangelo's bedroom, and they have the pajama scene already set up for it. Like, it literally will happen October 9th. It'll be the first scene. Alex will stretch and get up in his Toronto Maple Leaf gear, and everything will be just great. No, I'm kidding. I mean, real, like, of the three that were named, it's either, to me, it would either be Calgary or Vegas. Vegas seem to be the two best options, like, in terms of cap. But in terms of term, I don't know how. I do see where Devin is coming from about giving him a 7-year, a really long term. I could see 4. Maybe 5, but 7.
I think free agents are going to find out in a hurry here with the flat cap and the uncertainty and COVID and everything that there isn't going to be much interest in 7-year deals out there. Players are going to have to accept that it's going to be something less than what we'd see in a normal year.
Even Vegas, I think, would have trouble fitting Pietrangelo, and they'd have to move out someone significant. Especially
and the thing about cap space. Yeah. The thing about cap space too is you don't want to just use it all up before the first day and then have no ability to make changes during the season.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, that kind of killed the Maple Leafs last year. They were so capped out, and then they had some difficulty with backup goaltending and just struggling, and they've changed coaches, but they really couldn't do much about the roster itself. They just didn't have that cap wiggle room.
But my thing is, like, okay, you're gonna have to move somebody out, right? For the Flames to get Pietrangelo. But why would you trade anybody to the Blues for Pietrangelo's rights to sign him when he's going to be UFA, right? It'd have to be a perfect deal to make that work.
You don't have to trade it to the Blues, though. You can trade it. You can make another trade. Like,
totally.
Yeah, there's a 90% chance that you're trading Johnny Gaudreau anyway, right? As an example.
I'd say it's even, now that I think about it more and more, I believe it's going to be less. I think it's more about Monahan than anything else going forward. I think Monahan is at the forefront of getting moved before Johnny Gaudreau is.
I think.
What was that?
I think you can make a debate that you'd get more for Monahan than you would get for Gaudreau just because he's a center.
That's
center
true.
That scores 30 pretty much every year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Has
true.
a name in his jersey, sure.
Yeah. And Gaudreau, once again, I've said it on this podcast before, trading a 90-point player, it's a hard pill to swallow, but it'd have to be the correct deal. Monahan would probably have more trade value you could get back. But yeah, I just don't see Gaudreau potentially going anywhere. And that's not what I would do, but I just think that's what the way they're leaning.
I guess for me, if they went Ward, to me, it felt like it was either, like, not to be over dramatic about this, if it was Ward or Gaudreau, it's I think they chose Ward, and I think that I do believe that they're looking at trading Gaudreau. Whether they find that right combination, I think is a different question.
Yeah.
But I think Monahan trade, I do think you would get more for Monahan, and I think you just move Lindholm to center, and you've got that somewhat solved there anyway. So, but without Gaudreau, where are you getting that potential 90 points is the question.
Exactly.
And then unless you go after Taylor Hall, which they do don't. And then for the Devin, I guess we'll start with Devin on here with the Flames. Is there any, like, looking forward, flat cap wise, is there any Flames that you think that they need to lock up, i.e. Canuck wise, that you need to look and think about? You want to think about, we need to make sure that we've got going forward, or?
No one really. Sam Bennett has one more year at 2.5. Derek Ryan has one more year at 3.1. Looking down the list here, I don't really see anybody really you want to lock up long term here. So no, all their major guys are all locked up. It really depends on what the trade market looks like, and how they go forward in this off season. That's going to be massive. But as far as extending anybody, I don't really see anything too urgent. I mean, you got Yusuf Valimaki one more year. So until he needs to get his he's going to be an RFA. So as of right now, I don't see anybody.
I guess the other big question, or unless Tyler and Sean had a comment, the other big question, I guess, with the Flames is what you do with Jankowski.
Let him walk. I'm ready to move on from him. I didn't like him playing in the playoffs at all, and I know you're on the same page there, Kev. It didn't work out, and maybe he can recreate his career somewhere else. But yeah, just let him go. He's just a glorified fourth liner that is a good penalty killer, and that's all he is, and he's nothing more than that as of right now.
He probably will be sought after in free agency, though. Like, I think it'd be one of those guys that would be a cheap sign for a team to get to.
Totally.
Yeah, but his qualifying offer is 1.75 mil.
Right.
So unless he's willing to take a long-term deal at like 1 million, which is kind of what he's worth right now, he's not gonna get that from the Flames.
No.
When we talked earlier about RFAs not getting qualified, Jankowski is likely going to be one of those.
Yeah, I can see that. Shillington, I think the Flames will qualify him. I can see that.
Yeah, for sure. He'll get qualified. He could potentially be a trade bait as well. A sweetener, if you will.
Right. Yeah, we'll keep going in.
But yeah, he'll get qualified. He'll definitely be maybe a throw-in, if you will, or a sweetener going forward. So you got to qualify him. He's a tweener for sure. On any other team, he could be easily a bottom pairing defenseman, and he does have a lot of upside. He's still pretty young. I think he's 25, isn't he?
Yeah, 23.
23. Yeah, so he's still young. Going forward, he'll be fine. Mangiapane needs an upgrade there too. Signed that 1 year, like we talked about earlier. He held out during training camp, and everybody was wondering what the hell he was doing. But he kind of showed that his worth this year. So going forward, he'll get a nice little bump too.
Shillington's qualifying offer is pretty simple. It's under 800,000. So it's the RFAs that have made a lot this past season, and the RFAs that's got arbitration rights and had a good season. So Jake Virtanen's one of those as well. I think there lots of talk that he'd have an arbitration case for about $3 million a season. And is that what you want to be paying someone who's that inconsistent? So it's going to be very interesting all across the league. All 31 teams are going to have to make decisions on RFAs.
Yeah, I should do a post on that, actually, if I have time. Yeah, I wanted to read what Steve Eiserman. I thought this was interesting before we move on, because I mean, I think we're all talking about those floor teams, which I think Detroit has looked at one of those options because they did the Mark Stahl deal. But we're still in a position to do that. We have cap space, we have roster spots to fill, so we have to be careful. You can get to the cap very quickly, but we're in a position to potentially do future deals like the Mark Stahl deal if they come along. There aren't that many, they don't happen a lot, but yeah, we're in a position of a team, and there's so much uncertainty in the league right now. We're heading into the draft, we're heading into free agency. We don't know when we're starting, what the landscape's going to look like next year. So we're all kind of going into uncharted waters. And for the Red Wings, we are in a position where we do have cap space that we can use it. And I hope to use it wisely. But one way we would like to try to use it is to acquire future assets should any teams be in a position where they really have to move contracts and don't have any other options. Nobody wants to give up picks or prospects, if sometimes you have to do what you have to do to make your team better, and we're trying. I don't want to say take advantage of that, but find teams that are in a position that need to do that. And again, we're trying to add picks or prospects at the same time ice a team. So that is from a perspective of a team that is on the bottom end looking for those that the Vancouver fans are wanting for Louis Eriksson as an example to take. That's what Steve Eiserman is thinking. So
but he says he doesn't want to take advantage of teams. Of course you want to take advantage of teams. Whenever you have a team that's sinking or looking to get rid of a contract, you don't want to give them help. You want to give them an anvil to sink them, right? It's very political what he just said, but I mean, let's be honest here. Let's you want to build a team that's going to be a winner, and right now Detroit is a bit questionable going forward, but you really just you don't want to give help to any other GMs.
Well, I read that like, the goal of making trades is to improve your own team. Yes, if you can slow down the competition, that's great, but that's not obviously the primary objective in making a deal.
Yeah.
Going back to the Flames, sounds like the talk out of Winnipeg is that they're looking to trade Patrick Laine. Is that someone that you think the Flames would be after?
Oh,
thanks to Caleb Anderson on YouTube for that comment.
Oh, hey, we got a thought.
It's interesting. You have a player that once again can score. Is questionable on his 200-foot game. Potentially, if you can get the right deal, then yes, go for that player, because goals are what players get paid for, and goals are what win games, right? So I could definitely see it, but I'd be very weary about what you're thinking you're going to get with that player.
Would you trade Gaudreau for Laine straight up?
No, I wouldn't. I think that Johnny provides more than Laine does, or Laine would on that top line.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that either, Kevin.
What I like about Laine is he's a right shot, which I do think the Flames are missing. But I also, it's a fascinating thing, because I think from Winnipeg's perspective, I think they need stuff. I just don't think Laine would be a fit here in Calgary, and I don't think that that's a potential trade that works for either organization. Like
I could see Monahan go with
I would not
somebody
trade
else.
Laine under any. That would be a terrible trade for the Flames.
Well, I'm just hear me out, because you have a sniper in Laine, and then you have a playmaker in Gaudreau, and putting them on the same line could be potentially very deadly, right? If you think about that combination, I'm not saying that I would do that, but I would say that I'd rather see Monahan go for Laine than Gaudreau.
Gaudreau, Lindholm, Laine as a line.
Yeah, as a good top line. You have a center that's a good 200-foot player that could. His offense will struggle with kind of trying to compensate for those two, but I think that'd be a good first line, really.
Fair. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I just don't quite see it. It's interesting, but I don't see a Winnipeg Calgary match there for a trade. To me,
Yeah,
but I also think Winnipeg really needs to shore up that blue line as much as anything
they
else.
definitely do.
That has got to be one of their top priorities, I would think. And I don't know if Calgary has the options for them to do that.
Yeah, and usually if you're going to trade two top players, you want to get them out of your conference too.
Yeah,
you don't really want to. You're not looking to trade in division or in your conference.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just quickly check the Facebook comments. I haven't had a chance to do that yet. While Sean is looking after the YouTube. Yeah, nothing new. Everyone's still liking the pink mug and Tyler's beard. That's
how long are you going to grow that there, Tyler?
Well, what do you mean? It's been like this for, I don't know, long time. I'm not going to let it go like you guys, where it's inches in length. But
I'm just saying, winter's coming, man. You're going to get cold.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let the flow happen again, though. So, although my hairstylist really doesn't agree with the flow. So it bugs her when I keep emphasizing leaving it, but we'll get that sorted out eventually.
I'm just gonna wear a hat.
Yeah.
So let's just quickly talk about the Stanley Cup Final. I don't know where everybody has been watching. I think I was under the impression that this would end. This is why we recorded. I thought this would end and we would have the opportunity to talk about a winner of a Stanley Cup. But no, Corey Perry had to ruin everything, being Corey Perry. What have anybody been watching? What's been kind of your interest level? Anything kind of striking you or?
Yeah, I'll start on that. I think it's been a great Stanley Cup final. It's too bad with the time of year and the competition now with other sports, particularly the NFL, but also the baseball postseason right around the corner. The NFL or the NHL, I should say, getting a little bit lost in the shuffle. I think on both sides of the border. Ratings are not very strong for NBC south of the border. But Tampa, 2 of the 3 wins were 1-goal wins. Dallas has been in this series a lot more than the 3-1 series deficit prior to last night's game would have indicated. Now it's 3-2. I think Dallas has a real shot at this thing. They just got to hope that Hudobin doesn't burn out here. He sure looked tired last night.
Yeah, it's all going to come down to whether how much gas Hudobin still has in the tank, and see if he can continue to play as well as he has, because the Lightning have controlled most of the play. They've got majority of the chances, and they're getting and it's gonna tire the Dallas defense and Hudobin out if they continue it up.
Yeah, I'll be expecting Tampa Bay to lock things up. I was expecting that last night watching, but Corey Perry decided to steal the show there in his pesky passion for doing that. So good on him for scoring that goal. But yeah, it's so weird because I always for the past couple series I've written off Dallas. But they've always just been so resilient, and Khudobin's been standing on his head, even when Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin have been non-existent. It makes you kind of wonder what would happen if they were going on all cylinders. So if by any chance they want to actually step up and show up for a game, Dallas does have a chance. But it's hard to count out Tampa too. I'd be very surprised if this Dallas Stars do come back, but like I said, I've been counting them out every series.
Well, to see Corey Perry and Joe Pavelski step it up when really needed the most, for a Stars fan, that's got to be encouraging. 2, big acquisitions. You've got them for this reason. They've got that experience of deep runs in playoffs. Corey Perry, a Stanley Cup. So for that to go as it did last night was, it's got to be a big boost for the team. Now they get the off day, get a chance at it again here in Game 6 to keep their season going. And a comment on the Corey Perry overtime winner. I mean, most people, like if it's me, that loose puck in front, just jam away at it. The poise he had to take his time and actually get around the goaltender and finish that chance. He may only get one good chance, and he he delivered. Even
that first goal, like what he did there, that was just a lot of players would just take that one, just take the shot and get out of there. He took the time, made the move, and got it around Vasilevsky there too. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I actually think this is going to go 7. I really think Dallas is going to make a game of this Monday, and I would not be surprised if they won the series. What people, we're talking about Dallas being out of gas. Tampa's played 8 overtimes or 7 or 8 overtimes, I want to say, and 4 have been in the double. They had the 5 overtime game. I don't know. I wonder if Tampa is going to run out of gas here soon too.
I mean, that's every playoffs. It's attrition and gas, and who has the most left in the tank when you get to perhaps a Game 7, just like last year. I mean, it looked like Boston was out of it once they got to Game 7 against St. Louis.
Yeah. And
it's the other thing there, Kev, is as we said, it's gas and attrition, and it takes a lot to come back from 3-1. So Dallas is going to have to come with their best game of the playoffs on Monday to try and stave off another being eliminated and having the Lightning win the cup again. So I think it's going to be very interesting. I'd feel a little more comfortable with your prediction there if Tampa hadn't been controlling the play for the past game and a half significantly. So I think Tampa came in a little bit more tired, but after they got into the rhythm again and weren't playing back to back all that, Dallas started getting a little more tired. Tampa's skill has really started to show through. I think it's gonna come down to an absolute heroic, legendary performance from Khudobin to force Game 7 and to have Dallas win the series, I think.
And talk about a playoff warrior in Jason Dickinson. He's been taking shots off the feet and just sacrificing his body, and those are the players that you need to win. So I think he's kind of been he should be the spotlight should be on him a little bit more, you do need those players.
Quick nod to Justin Dowling making an appearance for Dallas last night as well. We've got to get that in.
Yeah, of course. I was going to bring it up, and then I was like, JD here, you got to keep rolling, bud. Keep going.
And I mean,
just want to comment quickly, Kevin. We have to talk about the officiating a little bit.
Yeah, that's the other
one.
Man, this is
okay. So,
Tyler,
you just could not have more of a contrast from one game to the next than what we saw between games 4 and 5. I mean, Game 4. For me, kind of what you'd typically expect. Yes, penalties get called in the overtime. Debatable as to whether they're clear-cut calls or not. I mean, I thought the one on Jamie Benn was a penalty. But then last night, I mean, you almost had to kill somebody to get a penalty. It was just impossible. I think it was Maroon doing the who me behind the goal line, pleading his case to not have a penalty. And you turn around, the referee doesn't have the arm in the air, and he's going why are you looking at me? I mean, it's bad when the player is showing the guilt and there's still not a penalty called. Boy, oh boy, I so now if you're those teams, what are you expecting in Game 6? I don't know. And one thing that they're doing differently with this final is instead of 4 referees in 2 pairs alternating game to game, now they got 5 referees and they're mixing and matching the pairings there. And I'm not sure if that's working out very well for consistency.
Well, then there was oh, go ahead, Sean.
I think you're going exactly where I was going there, Kev. The point embellishment call when he got nutted by Corey Perry.
Yeah, what? What? I don't get that one either.
We can well, when Heidi comes back on, when she's able to, you can ask her about my response to that when the panel started talking about it, and you had Anthony Stewart saying, "Oh, that was embellishment." Like, he got nutted. He got a stick to the nuts. Like, what else? Like, are you going to stand up there stone face? Come on.
I know, it's just ridiculous.
Well, I was also the other one I was going to bring up is the 2 penalties that ended up being only 1 penalty because they called the holding, and then they changed their mind on that last night. I think that was during regulation time. I think it was in the second period. I think.
Yeah, there was something weird that happened there.
Yeah, third period. It was the Pavelski penalty. There was supposed to be another penalty, and then that wasn't called. But the most ridiculous thing was the icing call.
Oh, yeah, we did forgot all about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a save by Vasilevsky off his toe.
Yep.
And that would have, because if Tampa scored there, that would have been insane. This
would have been like last year with the missed hand pass in the Western Conference Final. I mean, that just, oh boy. At Dallas, they tried, as hard as they could to stall tactic there to get them to change their ruling, and they didn't.
Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah, it has not been the best finals for the officiating.
I just don't know how they could get that wrong. I mean, it's not that loud in the building. You clearly on the TV broadcast did not hear the clunk sound of the base of the net. So I'm not sure where they got the idea that it went off the side of the goal for an icing, but apparently that's what they thought.
I can't imagine if the Canucks were in the playoffs, how Sean would be feeling about this. Oh my God, you'd be going off.
Well, I mean, I was kind of losing it just watching as a neutral party. I'm like, how can they, like, that is just such a screw up. Like, holy moly.
You being a ref makes sense.
Passion, Kevin.
Oh, it's called passion. Oh, okay.
It's called passion, bud.
Passion.
Oh, okay. All right.
The other, just to quickly, I do feel the NHL is just unfortunately with this schedule, and I totally understand why they had to do it, but didn't get any help with Jamal Murray and the Denver Nugget run, and not going to get any help on Monday when it's Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs versus Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. Mm-hmm. There's just they're not getting any help in terms of the ratings, unfortunately, for this final. But
I guess I'm the minority in this, that I don't give a shit about football. God, I don't care.
You are the minority there, Dev.
I know. I've tried to get in football, but I can't. It's not hockey.
Yeah, it's fair, but yeah, and then you've got the Blue Jays run, which that will go 24/7.
Well, it could be 2 games and over fairly quickly, but yes, Tuesday they'll be playing somewhere at some time in a postseason game, still to be determined based on results today.
Now, before we wrap this up, I'm just curious on everybody's pick for the Conn Smythe. Get it back to hockey talk here.
It's
okay for Tampa. For me, for Tampa, it's if Tampa wins, it's Braden Point. With an honorable mention to Victor Hedman, who I do think Hedman is the best defenseman in the NHL right now. But Braden Point, to me, just that line of Point, Palat, and Kucherov has been absolutely fantastic. And it's hard to get around that for me for Tampa. For Dallas, honestly, if it's not Hoboden, I would actually throw a vote to Corey Perry. He scored some key goals at certain times. It's that in terms of a player, other than Hoboden, I would have to go Corey Perry.
All right, Kev, you got to figure out how to say his name properly, though.
Hoboden.
No.
Hudobin.
No. Hudobin.
It's the D before the B.
It's what time is it here?
You already had your coffee at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
Come on.
Just quality Sunday morning programming here.
Thanks for everyone for watching. But those are my
I'm just going to jump in and say I'm of the same belief as Kevin there on those choices. Although for Point, if he could get another goal or 2 here before it's all said and done, that would really seal it up for me as far as Tampa winning and who's the Conn Smythe winner. But for Dallas, it's Hudobin all the way.
Khudobin and Hedman.
If it's not Hedman, I'm going to lose my shit. And maybe I have a bit of a bias towards defensemen because I was one growing up. So, and it's just his historic run in this playoffs is second to none in my mind. I'm nothing against Drayden Point, the Calgary boy, but yeah, how could you not give it to Hedman? But yeah, Khudobin, I mean, I can see the talk about Corey Perry. If he continues, yeah, maybe. But throughout the entire playoffs, Khudobin's been their number one.
It's Khudobin or Heiskanen, honestly, on Dallas. Heiskanen's fallen off the last couple rounds, but you cannot forget how important he was and how just off the charts amazing he was to start the playoffs.
Yeah.
But in terms of again going back to Tampa, you've got Kucherov and Point both with over 30 points in these playoffs. Like that's insane. Like I that's historic as well. But when you look at the way how Hedman's played, I have a hard time looking past that. He controls the game more than those two, despite them putting up 30 points.
Yeah, I'm not. I won't be outraged if Hedman wins. And I won't be outraged if Point wins. I think either or you could go. My last question is: Corey Perry a Hall of Famer?
Anybody want to go first?
I'd say that he is the longevity that he's had. He's won a cup, and if he wins another one, yeah, that'll solidify it for sure. His international play on top of that, I'd say that he is the only reason why I think people are questionable is because of his likability, and people dislike him. But I don't know. It's if you think about it and look at his stats and look what he's done, then I think that it's undeniable.
Yeah, Hart Trophy on the resume as well. Definitely another Stanley Cup win here would make it a slam dunk. But I mean, otherwise the resume is as impressive as they come.
If it's me making the decision, no. I want to. It's the Hall of Fame. It's like the Hall of Greatness. It's not the Hall of like pretty good, really good. Like I have a higher level. And can you tell the story of the NHL without talking about Corey Perry during his career? I think you can, other than the one season. So I wouldn't say that. But I expect him to be. Just based off of who's gotten in the past.
There's a lot of players in there that the international resume has been a big reason why they've gotten in, and it's pretty cut and dry for Corey Perry. I mean, he's been on a lot of great teams, the Team Canadas that have won big tournaments. So, yeah, I think it'd be a surprise if he didn't get in.
Well, I don't think for us, Sean isn't making the decision, so
yeah.
Well, the Hockey Hall of Fame committee's allowed Kevin Lowe into the Hall of Fame. Come on.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that.
like I said, I for me, it's all about trying to tell the story of hockey, and make sure that the player has been at the top, like a top end player. For the majority of his career, and I don't think Perry's been that. But based off of what the Hockey Hall of Fame has put, who they've put in, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets in. It may take him a few years, but I wouldn't be surprised.
No, I don't think he's getting in on his first crack, but I do think he'll get in. Let's leave it there. We'll be back next week, probably on Saturday. We have a very interesting week because we will have the Stanley Cup champion at some point next week, Monday or Wednesday. We'll probably have a lot of off-season moves to talk about because I think it will start to ramp before the draft. We'll have to do a bit of a draft preview although there are things that look obvious, there could be some things that may not. So we'll be digging into that. I want to also give a quick shout out to Schneids, who's a celebrity. By the way, he was interviewed by a classmate of mine about the 2011 Stanley Cup riots. So that's on Evolution 107.9. Search the podcast there, look for the Vancouver 2011 riots, and you will hear Chris pontificate about his time in Vancouver during that time. So there you go. And how do we follow everyone else?
I am BeardyConnect03 on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter at tnoble, TNOBLE.
I'm on Twitter at GordHouse09.
I am Heidi is Heidi Mazeballs. Schneids, SCHNIDZ. I am KVOLE. Podcast_hockey. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe on YouTube and iTunes, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Thanks everyone for watching, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now. Here we are. Sean, do you have YouTube?
I can do that for you, yeah.
I forgot to record this too. That's okay. I can download it from the web.
Yeah, I just noticed that now the recording indication wasn't there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yep, that's always.
Good to be back.
Yeah, it was a fun show too. I thought it was a good show. Not that I think we have never done a terrible show, but
on Facebook.
And we got 130
approximately.
130?
130.
Yeah, we're starting to get some more traction again.
Yeah, it seems like every day there's a new like of the podcast, and the goalie on my rec team is one of them. One of the more